Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Nihongo Samatome and 4 Japanese grammar. Once again from the Samatome Japanese language textbooks. Today I'm using my phone to record because I just wanted to test and compare the audio quality really. But also I know that my iPad doesn't have the best way of picking up audio on it either, and I figured that it would probably be best if I tried to mitigate that poor audio quality just by constantly speaking from behind whatever I'm using to record. But besides the point, we're going to be covering 4 grammar topics today. The first of which is koto ni naru, the second of which is ka dou ka, the third of which is you ni naru, and lastly we will cover dasu. Now for the first one, koto ni naru. Koto ni naru is used at the end of sentences, and we use it whenever we're trying to discuss things that have been decided or some sort of action in the past that we were, we decided to do. So this first particular example, this first sentence is Mayonaka made okinai koto ni narimashita. So I decided to not stay up until midnight, right? Mayonaka made, until midnight. Okinai. Okinai is a verb that we typically use to say that we are going to wake up in that sense, or to wake up, but it can also be a stative verb describing a state of being awake. So, ima okiteimasu. Right now I am awake, right? But we'll get into the te form later on, but that's just an example. Also, one thing to note about this, we typically use this construction, the naru, is typically only in the past tense, and we maintain that the verb that is modifying koto be in the present tense. That's because of just a little bit of the predicate rules with Japanese, is that the terminating verb of the sentence dictates this tense. Anyway, for a second example sentence, we have Chugoku kaisha de hataraku koto ni narimashita. I decided to work at a Chinese company. You could also say Chugoku no kaisha, but I just wrote Chugoku kaisha because that's also valid, I think. But we have hataraku being the verb to work, and then it's present tense affirmative, so that means that we did decide to do this thing, to work at this particular Chinese company. Right. So brief overview, you have some present tense verb in the positive or negative form, and it modifies koto ni naru, but we only ever write naru in the past tense. So it would be narimashita or natta. And this, but if we want to describe whether or not we do something, this is in the case of not wanting to do something, we use the nai form, but we use the plain dictionary form when we do decide that we want to do that thing. For number 2, we have ka dou ka. Ka dou ka is, I don't think it's a copula to my recollection, it might be, but it is a phrase that we use to decide, or rather to state whether or not we think something is transpiring, right? Or whether or not the state of something is actually what it is, or whether or not some sort of predicative or some predicate transpired, right? I didn't really write that sentence too well. That one character should be a ka, but we'll see what I mean when I read it out. So for the first example sentence, I have apato no doa ni kagi o kaketa ka dou ka tashikameru. So apato no doa, my apartment door. And then we use the phrase ni kagi o kakeru. Kagi o kakeru means to lock. So when we apply ni onto doa with that predicate kagi o kakeru, we're saying I lock the apartment door. So kagi o kaketa, I locked. So apato no doa ni kagi o kaketa, I locked the apartment door. And then we have ka dou ka, so whether or not. Tashikameru is a verb meaning to check or to verify. So this whole sentence reads in English, I'm going to check to see whether or not I locked my door to my apartment, or I'm going to check whether or not I locked my apartment door. Another sentence. 明日雪が降るかどうかわからないから天気予報を見ます。明日 for the first word meaning tomorrow. 雪が降る to snow. So 明日雪が降るかどうか whether or not it's going to snow tomorrow. And then I include わからないから because I do not know. Wakaru being the verb to know, kara being because, and we learned that in one of the previous videos. And then we have the terminating predicate, tenki yohou mimasu. I will watch the weather report. So all in all, the sentence reads, because I don't know whether or not it's going to snow tomorrow, I'm going to watch the weather report. So now we know how to use kadoka. We usually just append it at the end of some sort of phrase. Usually you'll have some sort of complete predicate or complete sentence. And then we add kadoka to express this sort of, I'm not really certain about this particular thing. And then we just continue on with our sentence. And we terminate it as we please. Number 3, we have yo ni naru. Yo ni naru means to come to be that, or to come to pass. You could also kind of see it as being this sort of like indirect way of expressing because. There's usually this causative sort of thing, this causative mood that's appended to it, except it's not directly done by the actor itself. It's more of a consequence of the actor itself. So let's look at these 2 sentences I have down here, and that'll kind of show you what I mean. So, 毎朝走るようになってから風邪をひきません. So this sentence at first seems a little bit difficult to translate. So every morning, 毎朝走るようになって come to be that to run, kara after, because we use the te kara form. 風邪をひきません. I do not catch a cold. So you can kind of interpret this as, since I started to run every morning, I don't catch colds, right? So 走るようになって. So we have started to run, and we have this timestamp with tekara. But we're attributing the not catching a cold to the action of running every single morning. So there's this sort of indirect causative relationship between yo ni naru and the predicate of kaze o hiku. A better one, I think, that would better demonstrate what I mean would be the second one. 私の友達も物理学教室へ行くようになった. It came to be that my friends also go to the physics research room. So my friends, 私の友達も as well, so also my friends. 物理学教室 is that middle cluster of kanji right there. So the physics research room, へ行く to go to. ようになった. So it was just suddenly, not really suddenly, but my friends just kind of started to do this. It's come to be that they go there as well, right? It's come to be some sort of state. Another good example would be 毎日日本語を勉強するようになってからペラペラになりました. Or ペラペラ話せる. Or how about, so something along the lines of, ever since I started studying or learning Japanese, I've become fluent, or something like that, you know. I'm clearly not fluent because I don't have the practice speaking, but I do enjoy studying this regardless. That's another good example. We could use a tara construction even though it's really not in here. Like if we wanted to say, if I do this thing, then. But that's another way I think we could use this particular construction, but it also depends on the if-when construction, because there's multiple of those. Or, yeah, I think that's really it for yo ni naru. And then lastly we have dasu. Dasu means to start doing something. Oh, I realize it's been cut off here. So, for example, what we do to construct a sentence with a dasu form is that we take the polite form of the verb, its stem, and then we, instead of saying must at the end of it for will do something, we replace it with dasu. And dasu is conjugated like the actual verb dasu. So it would be dashimasu, dashimasen, dashimasen deshita, so on and so forth, right? So for this first sentence we have, 子猫が突然大きい声でにゃーと泣き出した. My cat, or the kitten, suddenly started to meow very loud. So if we break down that sentence, 子猫が, the cat or the kitten, 突然, suddenly. Instead of saying loudly, it's typically more spoken to say, you would say 大きい声で or 大きく. So if you want to make something louder, 大きくする. Like I'll make it louder. Or 音が大きくなる. The sound got louder. So in a loud voice, literally 大きい声で nyato, to meow. Thanks Google Translate. Nyato, nakidashita, began to cry. So, but the full phrase of to meow is nyato naku. So to cry, or to meow, cry, or to make a sound. Naku is kind of this multi-tool word for an animal making some sound in some cases. You can also use it with birds. So tori ga nakidashita, the bird started to crow, that kind of thing. Another example sentence. Oh, I meant to put made there. That needs to be made. But I returned. That's kind of a funky sentence. Ie kara kaite kara ame ga furidashita. This is why I don't do things at midnight, you guys. Since I returned from my house, is literally what that said. And I should put ie ni kaite kara is what I meant to put. But ie kara kaite kara. Since I returned from my house, ame ga furidashita. It has suddenly started to rain. So ame ga furu is to rain. But we, instead of saying furimashita at the end there, we say furidashita, right? Furidashita. Pardon my poor penmanship, I'm kind of writing at an angle. But yeah, that's basically it for this video. Just to recap, we have koto ni naru, which we use to discuss making some sort of action that has been decided, right? Then we have, I think, a better translation is a note here for the second sentence. It would be more appropriate to say for the second one, it has been decided that someone else will work at this company. Because koto ni naru is also kind of has that mood appended to it where you, the actor, aren't necessarily doing the things, but more or less it's a societal or environmental or circumstantial causation. So, kind of to rescind it a little bit, nakamade okinai koto ni narimashita. It has been decided that we aren't going to stay up until midnight. So it was not us, the actors, directly doing it. It's more just the circumstances surrounding it that are causing that. So, just a brief little correction there on my part. Once again, it's midnight and I'm sleepy. So we have koto ni naru, ka do ka for discussing whether or not we want to do something, yo ni naru for discussing things that come to be or come to pass, and then dasu, which is used to start doing a certain thing. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you'd like to see more of these, and oyasumi, because it's late.